Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
What exactly is a medium? How do you know you are one? Is mediumship a gift or a curse? I know there's an opening here for a large and small comment, but I'm not going to make it.
So welcome to the 880th edition of Behind the Paranormal.
888th. You're going to mess up the historians here.
Did I say 88th? I meant 888th. So
Right.
Too many eights. 888, that's 3/8 edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Coming to you from WOON, AM, and FM radio in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, on the Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live, and on TuneIn.com. I'm Ben, and those assorted questions came from my co-host, partner in Paranormal Adventures, and dad, Paul. And today, we bring you a show on an important subject that we don't really cover all too often. So if you'd like to join us on the air, you can give us a call, 401-766-1240. That's from anywhere. Or you can get in contact with us via various social media platforms, or email Paul at behindtheparanormal.com.
Valerie Lofaso is an empathic medium, a Reiki master, teacher, probably a few other things I can't pronounce, a paranormal investigator, the author of the Tangled Web of Friends young adult paranormal fiction series. Valerie's official bio says that she has been an empath her whole life and has come to understand what that means only in the past 15 years through research, investigating, and fieldwork. She is co-founder of the KRI Center for Consciousness Studies in New Hampshire, which operated for 10 years before closing in 2019. While there, Valerie managed and facilitated events, lectures, and classes in all fringe subjects and founded her Empath Support Gathering, which continues today. She is a member of the Seacoast Paranormal Research Group and co-host of the Exeter Terrestrial TV show on Exeter, New Hampshire Public Access. She can be found on Facebook by searching Valerie Lofaso, that's Lofaso, author and empathic medium, and we have a link on our website to that. Valerie has been on Behind the Paranormal a number of times over the years as part of panels with other guests, but this is her first solo appearance. She lives in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, one of our favorite towns. Just on a personal note, longtime listeners of this show will be aware that we have been very critical of traditional mediums on the show. We seldom have them on, and we're seldom impressed when we do. But then we get to know someone like Valerie in New Hampshire or Susan Shepard in West Virginia, and it reminds us that our own theories and methods are way outside the mainstream, and that we need to listen to other ideas too. In fact, we plan to include Valerie in our own work going forward, which will be fun because she's already good friends with everyone in the crazy gang we work with on Flatberry cases already. And she will be a contributor to our forthcoming book, Behind the Paranormal 3, Uneasy Skies.
So Valerie Lofaso, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, well, it's great to have you back with us. And, first solo flight, so welcome aboard. I guess we'll just hop right into it and just start right at the very beginning, as Julie Andrews once told us, because it is a very good place to start. What is a medium?
So the short version is a medium is a person who can communicate with what we believe are the souls of departed humans. That's kind of the generic term for it.
Okay, so...
That was a quick answer. Okay.
Yeah, it was hey, it's short and sweet, I guess. So what is an empathic medium, as opposed to other forms of mediumship?
Well, the longer I do this, the more I realize that intuition is very individual, and there tends to be a very wide spectrum of possibilities where you can fall with your own intuition. Some people are very strong mediums where, like I just said, they communicate with what they believe are spirits of dead people. Other people are very psychic, and that tends to mean that, they're picking up on energy of objects or they have premonitions, that type of thing. As an empath, I get information from energy, and as you guys probably are aware, pretty much everything on this planet has some sort of energy to it. I have found that I can read the energy of pretty much everything at this point. Humans, animals, plants, land, buildings, objects. And as an empath, that tends to get very overwhelming. empaths take on the energy of all of this stuff. The term empathetic, not all people who can be empathetic are empaths. It's kind of two separate things, but a person who is an empath can put themselves into the shoes of other people very naturally, very easily, but it's very, very exhausting to do that all the time, and you have to do it rather carefully.
That's what we've heard from other empaths, that it can be overwhelming, and they can't deal with it, some of them. So they try and block it. So now, Ben, I'm horning in on your lines here.
Yeah, stop stepping on my lines. So how does mediumship work?
Again, it varies person to person. For me, when I am getting energy, it's a feeling first, and it's kind of like, at this point, I think my body is kind of almost like an EMF detector. Like, I'm feeling energy. It's changing the sensations in my body that I'm feeling. Sometimes it'll be just in my head. Usually it's in my chest and stomach. And when I start to get these sensations, I have to start asking the questions. Where is this coming from? Do I need it? Is this coming from a person? Does somebody else need this information? There's a whole lot of questions that I have to ask. And at the same time, I'm feeling into the energy more to try to translate it into symbols or images. It's a very complicated process and hard to explain. For me, I rarely just see a spirit standing in front of me. That does happen occasionally, but generally it's a lot of work to get there.
People might be wondering about some of these terms, and you know how we are with defining terms. You hear about psychics, you hear about mediums, you hear about psychic mediums. Can you sort that out for us? What's the difference?
I think I said a little bit about this earlier. Mediums will be communicating with dead people, souls, that type of thing, whereas psychics are going to be getting energy from objects, tarot cards, premonitions. That type of thing tends to be more psychic than medium. I think most intuitives tend to be a blend of both to some extent. I know personally I feel like I'm a blend of both, like maybe falling right in the middle, feeling energy from objects as well as energy from humans or animals or whatever other types of beings I might come across.
Okay. Now,
is that
Valerie,
clear as mud now?
I'm sorry?
Is that clear as mud now?
Oh, no, it is. It is not as mud, but a little bit better than that, certainly. Now, you sat through or endured, 10, 20, 30 of our lectures over the years. And one of the reasons we want to work with you is because we need somebody with a different opinion. If everybody in the group agrees with your opinion, what are you going to learn? So, and you know that we don't believe this has anything to do with dead people at all, but we may be wrong, and we're willing to certainly to admit that. We think that they're actual people who are alive in parallel worlds, Anybody who's listened to the show knows all about that, and you do too because you listen to us. What say you about any of that? I mean, could there be a combination of the parallel world thing and people who are maybe dead here and there, or are we saying the same thing in different terms? A lot of mediums tell us they believe what we believe, only they put it in different ways and maybe look at it a little differently. I mean, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have had experiences where I think the parallel worlds theory definitely has a lot of basis to it, but then there are situations where, I'm sitting at the dinner table with a friend and their deceased uncle comes through very strongly with a message. And I ask myself, well, why would somebody from a parallel world want to bring this guy a message? Like, how would he know that that's what he needs at this moment? So, at this point in my intuitive career, I really want to work with the energies that I'm feeling and ask these questions. Okay, well, where are you originating from? Why are you bringing this message through now? There's so many questions I have for these energies, because, I trust that, this is that friend's uncle, but then how do I know that's that friend's uncle? That's the information I'm getting, but I don't know exactly where that information is coming from. I want to explore that more, and that's why I'm excited to work more with you guys, because I think I'll really have that opportunity to ask those questions to all different kinds of energies from what you guys have talked about with your investigations.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait to get you into some of it, particularly Pennsylvania with the Flap area. And, there are people, you got Bigfoot, you've got UFOs, but you also have what people describe as shadow people and various things of that kind. I think it's going to be really amazing to work with you. Now, how has mediumship changed in the modern era? In other words, we don't see anybody anymore sits there and, ectoplasm comes out of their mouths, like you saw in the 1890s and all this. I mean, how has it changed since the Fox sisters experience in the 1840s and from the Oracle at Delphi in the ancient world all the way up to how is it different today?
Well, I think it definitely is. There are still people that do some of that stuff. I think there's a place somewhere in Europe, can't remember exactly where they do stuff like that. But I think the biggest difference from mediumship at that time to mediumship now is more people are understanding that they can do it themselves. They don't necessarily have to pay somebody to get a reading. They can learn how to develop their own intuition. And it's not exactly, a lot of people use the analogy of, it's a muscle that you have to exercise. And I don't think that that's entirely true. I think everybody has intuition. It's learning how to recognize it and paying attention to that. We all need our own internal dictionaries to translate what we are picking up on, and that's where it gets complicated. We all want to have things come through like, the TV mediums, like, it doesn't work for me the way it does for Teresa Caputo, and it's when we're inundated with these pop culture scenarios, we think, oh, well, I don't do that, so I don't have intuition. Well, that's not true. You do. You listen to your gut all the time, but you're not always aware that that's what you're doing. So I've seen more and more people exploring their own abilities and really coming into their own and using it for good, which is what we need right now.
Yeah, that's very astute. Our opinion is parallel with that. I think that this abilities of any kind, intuitive abilities, are a survival instinct that's built really into every species on the planet, including ourselves. And as we say, if you hadn't known that the saber-toothed cat was kind of thinking about you for lunch from the ledge above your head, and you didn't get the feeling you were being watched or were in some kind of danger, our species never would have survived. Our ancestors were not dumb; they were very, very intelligent, or they wouldn't have survived. And they used their intuitive ability. So that's how we see it.
I kind of want
Ben, you want to get in here?
Oh yeah, well, hey, you read my mind. It's interesting. I want to hone in on something that you've said repeatedly, Valerie, which is the phrase, "Where is this coming from?" That's really interesting to me, because in all the years that we've done this show, I don't think I've ever heard a single medium, clairvoyant, whatever word, phrase, subcategory you want to use, ever ask that question. And I think it credits you greatly. Shows you're very intelligent. You don't just automatically accept stuff, which is great. My question is this: what are some of the answers that you've received when asking this question?
I tend to get a lot of fuzziness for the most part. I haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to ask this question recently. And under the current circumstances, I'm not getting out of the house very often, and my home is highly protected. It takes a lot of faith in what I am feeling to trust the information that's coming through. The situation that I referenced with, having dinner with a friend and his uncle coming through, that actually happened. And that doesn't happen to me very often, where I'm in a casual social situation and I get overwhelmed by a presence. That was kind of the first time that it ever happened to me. Mm-hmm. And afterwards I did ask ask the question, was that actually this person's uncle, or was that something else? And what was resonating was that it may have been a form of his higher self coming through in the form of his uncle, who he was very close to, who he had just lost. But he needed this message, and he needed it to come in a way that would most highly impact him, so he would pay attention to it. You know, if you tell somebody, oh, well, your higher self is telling you to do this, they might blow it off. But if it's, you know, the uncle just passed away, and you're able to describe how he passed away, what he was like, you know, giving personality traits and ways to really identify this person, you know, that has a lot more weight to it for the person receiving the message. But I'm not confident that it was actually the energy of the uncle. I think it may have been a message from himself to help him on his way.
Yes, see, we run into that a lot, and we interpret that as your term would be higher self. Our term would be a facet from a parallel reality where the laws of physics are such that you can talk to the neighbors, as one of the people I've dealt with from a world where that apparently is happening, can take place. So that's, I think, very astute also. Now, there's one more question. I want to get to some questions from our listeners here, but one thing that's fascinating here is that unlike many mediums whom we've encountered, Valerie, you are also a UFO researcher and research all areas of the paranormal. How does your gift of mediumship help you in UFO research, or how could it, or how has it, or what?
You know, it has helped me by helping other people. My own personal experiences are not what I would call traumatic in any way. They were only positive experiences. But I've encountered a lot of people who've had trauma around UFO and ET encounters. And through working with the energies to help calm them down in situations or bring them comfort in situations that might otherwise be uncomfortable for them, has been very helpful when interacting with them. You know, a lot of times it's in the support group type situations, that type of thing. I think you guys know Mike Stevens. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling this story. But there was a time when we were together on a mountain, and we were doing a CE5, the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind meditation, to draw in a benevolent being of some sort, and we had something show up, and Mike became very nervous, and I was sitting right next to him, and I immediately could tell that he was uncomfortable. So I used my mediumship to communicate with what we were looking at to make sure it was in fact benevolent, and then I was able to let Mike know that, and that encouraged him to, you know, calm himself down and be open to what was happening.
Well, a few months ago, we had Mike on the show with Nomar Slevik talking about experiences like that and their book that they have produced about Mike's really traumatic experiences. And all the years I've known Mike, we've never really had a chance to sit down and talk about that. But that's a story that I had never heard, Valerie. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, we're going to have a break pretty soon, but not just yet. Here's a question, Ben. I don't want to. Do you want to get in here? Okay.
The questions I will ask will probably take up past the break, so we're gonna leave them for later.
Okay, good. Well, why don't we get to Peter from Bogota, sort of an honorary guest co-host. Sends in great questions every week. Ben, you have that question?
I do. Let's hope it's the correct one. So Peter writes to us, can you explain the difference between what you do in remote viewing? Second, can you give us any insights on the phenomena of alien abductions?
All right, so the first question, can you explain remote viewing, first of all, so people will know?
So remote viewing, from what I understand, is energetically projecting yourself to a specific location, whether it's chosen by somebody else or if you're choosing a certain location. It's kind of like a I don't want to say forced, but a willing out-of-body experience to put yourself in a location to view what is happening there in the present moment. Whereas, you know, just regular intuition is dealing with where you are. You're not going anywhere. You're working with where you are, as far as I can tell.
Okay. So, as to Peter's question, the difference between that and what you do?
I mean, I'm working with the energies directly in contact with me where I am, so I'm not putting myself in other locations far away from where I am. It's actually something I would like to try more. I just, don't currently have much time for stuff like that.
Okay. All right. And the second question, Ben, maybe you can repeat it.
Sure, which is, can you give us any insights on the phenomena of alien abductions?
It's hard for me to speak on that because I never want to take away from somebody's experiences, but the people I've encountered who believe that they have been abducted have what feels to me empathically as very genuine experiences, and they believe that this has happened to them, and I have no reason to think that they are not telling me the truth. Now, I hope that answers the question.
Right, okay. At the KRI Center, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were involved with a support group for people who had experiences like that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, with Mike.
With Mike Stevens, right.
Yes.
Okay. Does that still meet?
Mike is still holding some groups. I don't know if he's doing the support group quite as much. I think now that we're getting back into spring and can meet outdoors, groups like that will be happening more. He tends to head those up, and I think he wants to continue them, and I would like to continue to be a part of them as the world normalizes a little bit more.
Yeah, the reason we ask is because many people may not know where to turn when they have experiences like that, and I know that's not really the subject of our discussion today, but it's all it's all part of the issues that can arise. We wanted to also get to we may have to ask the question and then go to the break, but we'll get started with it here. My printer is down, so I'm using my phone here. All right, there we go. Okay. Because a question came in. Well, I will. I'll look for that, and we can. We'll just continue. I'm not used to using the phone for all this stuff. So in any case, let's see. Let me get back to the script here. Ben, you got anything before I?
Oh, sure
make
thing.
a fool of myself here. Can't find it.
It's okay, Dad. It's technology is both amazing and terrible all at the same time.
Here it is.
I guess.
Right.
I guess. Oh, you found it. Would you like me to continue? We do have a few minutes before the break. So
I wanted to. And we can perhaps get started on this and then finish it after the break. Examples of cases you have worked with. I was particularly interested in the one when you were clearing the KRI Center as it unfortunately closed. We ourselves spoke there several times and did live shows from there and panels on which you were participating. The angel at the KRI Center, very interesting sort of being as you describe it. Can you begin to get into that, and we can continue after the break?
Yeah. So Angel was actually what I called her. She was not an angelic being. I believe she was more of a land type entity. She would present herself to me almost kind of similar to Groot from, I can't remember, the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, kind of like made up of branches of a tree, very tall, slender. Sometimes she would be, 3 times the size of the building. Sometimes she would be able to fit in my pocket. But she was there when we moved. So we originally were in a Greenland location, and then we moved into the Stratum location.
It's Greenland, New Hampshire, not Greenland.
Right. Right. Yeah. And she came about after we had moved into the Stratum location, and we're looking for protectors for the space, because doing what we did, we drew in a lot of activity and energy from all different places. That wasn't always fun to manage. So she was kind of a watcher for us. And when we were closing down, I was working with her to see what her future was going to be. And essentially, she was there only for the center. And when I removed the protective energy that I had put around the center, she essentially vanished, dissolved, died. I don't even know what the proper term for it was, but her essence ceased to be in that form, and she will not ever be in that form ever again. But her energy went somewhere. I just don't know where. I think it's scattered.
Yeah. Every time we were there, which was a lot, we were with, many good friends such as yourself, very, very positive, atmosphere and spirit there, and a lot of great stuff. But, okay, I guess we're coming down to our, mid-show break here, and you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON 1240 AM and 99.5 FM in New England's very palatable Blackstone Valley today. Nice weather. No, it's not either. It's raining. But anyway, rain is good. And we'll be right back with our great guest, Valerie Lofaso, so stick with us.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to The Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Okay, and welcome back to Behind the Paranormal on WOON Radio, AM and FM. And we are continuing our fascinating discussion with empathic medium Valerie Lofaso, and author as well. And we are have a question here from Phil, and Phil is one of our Connecticut reporters, I guess in a way kind of a spy in the flap area that we've been talking about for many years, Litchfield County, Connecticut. And Phil, I bet that you don't have this because we're not in the studio. He says you'll probably get to this question today anyway. I guess we kind of have, but as a medium, how does Valerie assess whether an entity is being truthful? She is clearly multiverse aware. We did kind of get into that, but I think it's worth pursuing even further. So, Valerie, what do you have to say to Phil?
Well, it's a great question and something that I talk about a lot as an empath. I tend to feel into the core of energy very easily, whether it's people or not people. And it actually has helped me a lot on cases when I encounter entities because, you hear a lot about demonic entities and evil and dark and all this. Well, the KRI Center that we were just talking about, we would do training investigations there a lot for the purpose of training people, but because of what we did, we had all kinds of activity going on there constantly, noises and shadows and all kinds of things. So on one of our training investigations, there was a spirit in the basement that was presenting himself as this just disgusting spider-like evil thing crawling on the walls and the ceiling and just really presenting himself very disgustingly. But he was like an accountant or something in life.
Oh dear.
When I,
Not a lawyer.
When I felt into the core of who this was, I realized he was just somebody that was very unhappy. He was very confused. He didn't know what to do. And so he was presenting himself as a way that he thought would scare people to try to get attention. But he wasn't at all this like scary evil thing. And it tends to be something that I do very quickly is get to the core of what is happening. And I trust what I'm feeling at the core. I've had multiple experiences where it's been validated that, the essence of what I'm feeling is not what's being presented.
Interesting. Okay, we'll get back to that, but at the moment we have someone waiting on the phone. And I believe it is Tom Spidelleri, who was a good friend to all of the three of us, an organizer of many great events. Tom, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning. Actually, good afternoon, Val. Wow.
Hi, Tom.
Yeah. So, Tom is going to tell us about our brand new charity that we have adopted on the show, and we have several of them, and we're very careful to only endorse charities whose organizers and administrators we know personally, and we know that everything is used properly. So, tell us what's going on and about the Hilldale Cemetery, Tom.
Well, Hilldale Cemetery was formed in 1859. It was actually a private cemetery ran by a private board of directors. And through the years, things went awry. Money wasn't coming in. Money went wherever. And about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I took it over. Since then, we've been cleaning up over 20.93 acres of wilderness with all volunteers.
Oh, wow.
Run fundraisers over there. And the last 2 years, due to COVID-19, fundraising has been way down. And our biggest fundraiser of the year, both times, have been shut down. So it is hurting out there, but we're doing the best we can. We're also the only cemetery in Haverhill that runs streets across America for our veterans. And
it's in Haverhill, Massachusetts, is where
Haverhill,
it is.
Massachusetts, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I've been there. I was...
in Rhode Island that come up here, it's Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, some people, the foreigners, I don't know. But I've been there. As a matter of fact, I was honored by Tom to come up as the nearest living relative of H.P. Lovecraft that he could find, actually a distant cousin, and to honor a man who was a friend of Lovecraft's who was involved in the amateur journalism movement of the 1910s, 20s, and 30s, et cetera. And that's when I first got to see this unique and lovely cemetery. So if you go to BehindTheParanormal.com, our show website, we have a charities page with a bunch of charities on it, and then brand new is the Hilldale Cemetery, and it will take you to a GoFundMe page, and anything you can do is really would really be appreciated. So, Tom, thank you very much for calling it. Let's hope for
thank you for your support,
sunnier days and merrier times next year, so the event can continue in the New England Parafest. And but thanks again. We're going to be promoting that from now on.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
You too.
Okay.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Tom Spidelleri, unique guy, community-minded. It's amazing some of the things he does. Okay, so let's get back to our guest, of course, Valerie. And Valerie, if you would tell us, do you have any more cases you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, what kind of case would you like to hear about?
Well, the angel was pretty interesting. Yeah, Ben, go ahead.
So there's something you said earlier. I wanted to take a couple steps back to when discerning where the source of information is, trying to decide whether it was friend's uncle or something else. What is the something else?
Yeah, that's what I'm not so sure about yet. And I'm looking to explore it more. I don't know if we can really conceive of all the possibilities, and I'm concerned that I don't have the language for it. So I'm hoping that I can get more information and slowly try to figure some of this stuff out.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, it's a first day of school for all of us, I guess.
Well, we feel the pain there because we had to literally invent terms to talk about some of the concepts here. And we have a glossary beginning of my last book with those,
Yeah, and that's helpful.
There weren't any words to describe it.
Yeah, and that's it's really hard too when you're translating sensations and feelings into words. It's easy to feel something. It's hard to translate that sometimes into adequate phrases or definitions.
Yeah. Let's talk about spirits. Our personal opinion is that, and this comes from my experiences in the 70s and onward, they were so physical. I mean, I went into my first case in 1970 with the just assuming what everybody else assumed, that these were the spirits or souls of people, but then all this physical stuff started to happen. You'd hear farm life, you'd hear animals, you'd hear physical objects, and when people would see the quote-unquote ghosts, they would be dressed sometimes in clothing or doing physical things, and that really, and then a physicist told me that spirits, as in complete beings without bodies, incorporeal nature, which is one would think the definition of a spirit, having all their memories and their knowledge, and and especially being able to influence the environment, was not possible under the laws of physics. I began to question the whole notion of spirits as they are traditionally understood. Now you see other possibilities too, but what say you about that? I mean, I haven't believed in spirits, except as part of parallel worlds where the laws of physics would allow them, for a long time, and assuming those worlds might be far away from the group of worlds in which we interact. But I don't know, maybe I could be all wrong. What say you? I mean, what's your opinion on the nature of these beings as far as spiritual existence alone is concerned, as opposed to physical? I'm probably making a mess of this question, but maybe you could say some more about that.
Yeah, I think for a very long time, I, like everybody else, assumed that when I saw something, it was a departed loved one of somebody. We did an investigation at the Button Factory, which is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's an old mattress button factory, and it's now Artist Studios. And Mike Stevens was part of the investigative team, and he and I both saw a full-bodied apparition walk down a hallway before we had any cameras going, of course.
Of course, it always happens.
Like any good apparition, yeah.
Of course, but he walked down the hall and took a left-hand turn, and we chased after him, and the left-hand turn took him into a wall. So wherever he went, we couldn't go. At the time, I assumed ghost, okay. But now maybe not. Maybe that was worlds overlapping, worlds colliding. He didn't seem to be aware of us. He seemed to just be walking down the hallway and going where he needed to go. At the same time, I was training as a medium on that investigation, and the medium that I was training with had me experiment with a ghost that she was communicating with, who enjoyed abusing and mutilating people, especially women. Oh, and I felt sensations of something I couldn't see touching me in places he was not allowed to touch me, or it was not allowed to touch me, which was very weird. Was that actually the ghost of a dead person who liked to do these things? I assumed so at the time, but now I'm not so sure. That energy was definitely interacting with us, unlike the other energy that we saw. So were they from the same place? Were they from different places? I'm not sure. And unfortunately, at the time, I didn't have the awareness to ask those questions.
Yeah. No, I sympathize. Have you noticed in mediumistic situations spatial anomalies? For example, the book I hated writing, my last one, talked about my own experiences after advising people for 45 years not to be practicing mediumship in a casual manner. Here it looks like I was doing it. So I recounted those cases because I'm old and who knows how long I'll have to do that. And one of the, especially the early situations, were that what I was communicating with was like up by the ceiling or down in the floor or off to the side somewhere, which struck me as very strange. But I suppose from a certain point of view, it's not. What have you experienced that too, in the sense of they're not necessarily right in front of you?
A little bit, but not a whole lot. I tend to have situations where I will see things that look like one thing, and the second I blink, they look like something completely different. I don't know if that's kind of related, I think, a little bit to that. I think where
so. Yeah.
It seems like it's shifting very quickly into something else.
Well, our point of view, too, is that when you have a paranormal experience, and that would include these experiences, I would think, you're kind of partially in their world, and whatever that world may be, and they're partially in ours, and that's how the encounter takes place. I mean, I think it's more complicated than that, but I think that's a possible explanation for why things will change or what, I don't know, whatever. Just as Ben said, it's the first day of school.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. There's so much to learn. The more I try to learn, the more I need to learn.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, as we say, everything you know is wrong because we don't really know anything. So we just we learn and we try to do so together in some way that writes on the empty slate, as Aristotle would have said. So what is your next step? Do you consider yourself still in training or what?
Absolutely. I will never call myself an expert in anything because I don't know how you can be an expert in this stuff where it's so intangible. There's no way to have a firm grasp on any of this. So I want to constantly be learning and exploring new ways of trying to figure this stuff out.
Well, good. Tell us about your books and where people can find out more. And I just want to say first that Valerie is a novelist. Her books I don't have the newest one yet, but they're really good. And just because someone is a novelist, a fiction writer, does not mean that they are not a serious writer or that they're not extrapolating about their own field. Because fiction is a tremendous way, I think, to explain points of view, to put into understandable terms for people facts that you believe and have experienced. So go ahead, Valerie. Tell us about it. Yeah, Dostoevsky.
I like to think of my books as the first step to exploring this stuff. It's a stepping stone to opening the door of new ideas, because, when you read something in fiction, you go, oh, is that real? Maybe I should explore that a little more, and then they'll turn around and maybe find your books or, some of these other great books that are out there. But, the series that I have right now, it's The Tangled Web of Friends. The first two books are available in ebook format and print through, all online booksellers. The first book is called Summer Camp, and the second book is The Witches of Fishkill Pond. The third book is currently only available in print, and it is called The Last Hour. If I were going to be in studio, I would have brought you guys one, so I have a copy ready to go for you next time I see you. So.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they're available on Amazon?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. Yeah, anyone that sells books online pretty much carries them.
Excellent. And we have a few more minutes. Ben, how about getting into a little bit of crossover phenomena here?
Well, I guess. Well, I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit with UFO experiences, with Mike Stevens and all of that. But one of the big things in New Hampshire is Bigfoot. So any sort of run-ins with Bigfoot, cryptozoological creatures, anything like that, anything that kind of falls over into your realm, so to speak.
You better get used to that if you're going to come with us to Pennsylvania.
I can't wait to sit down and have a conversation with Bigfoot. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. Well, there are people who have communicated, and let's say we'll get into that. That's probably fodder for another show. But I'm thinking of our occasional consulting work with Denise Stoner and Kathleen Martin, who, both friends of yours too, who run into people who are being abducted, who believe they're being abducted, and then poltergeist phenomena starts to break out in their house, the things that they would consider demonic, and how do you deal with that kind of thing? How do you tell what the origin of a phenomenon is? So, how do you approach that in the sense of, is it just because it looks like, and you haven't gotten into that, but just because it looks like a ghost doesn't mean it is, or it might look like an alien, it might be something else. I mean, how do we?
Yeah, for me, I tend to look at what is the purpose of this energy before I ask any other questions, because I have encountered things that could probably be considered a demon, but it has a purpose. It is there to cause mischief and kind of wreak havoc on somebody's life, but it's because they need that to happen in order for something else to happen in their life.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That sounds like Second Temple Judaism cosmology for demons.
Yeah, it does actually.
Well, it's unfortunate, though, that, people don't like to hear that evil has a purpose. Because that's pretty much where I am at the moment, because we make the greatest strides in our lives and make the biggest changes for the better when we're challenged with something bad.
Well, that's modern culture, unfortunately, right? Because we live in a world where it's like everything has to be perfect all the time. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine because he was, we were just kind of talking about life and such, and I was like, well, Marion and I have had some stuff happen, and ultimately we've grown from it and gotten better. And he was like, well, what if everything's perfect? What's going to happen then? And I was like, dude, nothing's ever going to be perfect. That's just not going to happen, because that's just how life is. And if you think things are perfect, then there's something wrong. Yeah. So I think that's a reflection of society more than anything else, because in the modern world we live in with instant gratification, everything is supposed to be fine all the time. And stuff that's esoteric like this is like, it's too big of a deal, we're not going to deal with it. Or just, sign it off as, it's a dead person telling me something, who cares? And rather than looking deeper into it and seeing what's there, which is a potentially life-changing experience, for the better.
Well, I'm tempted to get into Manichaeism, dualism, and the evil God versus the good God in ancient theology, but I think we don't have time for that right now. But what do people do you think when they go to a medium who how do you tell if a medium is legitimate or is just wrong or is a crook? I mean, how do you discern that if you're someone who's seeking out some kind of guidance?
That's tough. I think people have to go with their gut, and I think even mediums who maybe aren't as legitimate as others have a purpose, and people need them for some reason. But I'm going to say look for the people that are humble, look for the ones who really want to help. I think the best ones out there are the ones who are like, I'm going to connect you to your loved ones so that you can do this when you go home. They're not looking for that person to come back over and over again, for every move they make. We call them psychic junkies, the people that have to get a card reading to make any type of move in their life. The good ones are going to show you the way to make your life better, not to keep a customer coming back over and over again.
Well, there's a movie with Richard Dreyfuss, and Ben, it was one of our favorites. What About Bob?
Oh, yes.
And Bill Murray is Bob, and a lot of people don't know about this film, despite the august cast. And Richard Dreyfuss is the psychiatrist, and Bob is the patient. And one of the first things he says to Bob, Bill Murray, is the best psychiatrist is the one inside of you. And one can see perhaps an analogy here or a parallel between the whole medium thing, as probably best to avoid ones you do not feel totally confident in. Or I don't know, I would say, you are your own best person. Someone wrote to us last show, and we read it on open lines, and our advice, she had just lost a loved one. And I often get with my canted point of view on things, not everybody you lose is a loved one. They might have been a pain in the neck, or you might not have been able to stand them. I mean, that's unfortunately that happens a lot in families. What do you do if they come around? So or the people, it's just time to say goodbye sometime. But this particular lady had lost her very beloved husband, and had written to us about this. And we said, it's not, at least from our point of view, it's not that they are still with you, but that you're with her, or I should say him in this case, in many worlds where he never died, and it's all you, the different facets of yourself, a word we had to invent. So I don't know, maybe that's all wrong, but she wrote back, and she was, as with many other people, have found a lot of comfort in that, and she didn't have to go to a medium to seek any guidance or pay anybody, and took great comfort in the idea that life continues, in many, many different worlds, and that this is just a very small part of what we are. This world. So, but that's our point of view. Hopefully, it's got some validity to it. But anyway, Valerie, is there a website where people can find out more about you? I know it's Facebook.
My website is currently being built, so hopefully that'll be done in a month or so. But otherwise, Facebook, Valerie Lofaso, author and empathic medium, is the best way to see what's going on with me and to get in touch with me.
Okay. And are you working on another book?
I'm currently working on the 4th book in my series. I have lots of other stuff in the works as well. Choose Your Own Adventure book for the series, collection of short stories, and some other things. So I'm always kind of thinking about other books.
Well, not to put you on the spot here, but you're one of our team that's going to contribute to our next book, The Uneasy Skies. Have you made any decision about what? Can you give us a hint, or are you still working on it?
Well, I'm definitely still working on it, but I'm hoping to kind of marry the empath stuff with the ET and UFO stuff, because I did have an encounter with my father when I was 4 years old that changed my life, and it has everything to do with being an empath. And I don't talk about that often because it's very personal. But I think, contributing this chapter is a great way to start speaking about this, because I feel like it is time to start looking at these possibilities.
I can't think of a better motivation, and we look forward to seeing that. So that book hopefully will be out either the end of this year or early next year, and we'll look forward to what Valerie has to say about that. So, okay, well, I think we're just about at the time for our announcements. And Valerie, thank you for a tremendous conversation. You're a wonderful person, and we look forward to working with you post-COVID, hopefully, as things get back to normal, particularly in Pennsylvania. I think you would really be really interested in that, and tremendous things that can happen down there. It's really, really amazing. Okay, so
I'm really
Ben,
looking forward to it. Thank you.
Excellent. And other things closer to home, too, that aren't, 8-hour drive away or whatever. Ben, so take us away, would you please, with our announcements?
Sure thing. Just when you thought it was safe to return to Maine, the New England Parafest, set for the Kittery, Maine Community Center 2 weeks from now, has been ordered canceled by the town of Kittery because of concerns that it's still too early for people to assemble in the wake of the pandemic. And we already had Tom Spidelleri come on and talk about the recent charity that we've adopted for the... Oh, geez, I'm blanking on the name of the cemetery now.
Hilldale Cemetery.
The Hilldale Cemetery Hilldale Cemetery in Haverhill, Mass. And so if you want to check out that along with other charities, we'll give you a little bit more information on that a little later.
Well, I'm sure it's a historic cemetery. You could tell a lot of tales. The new book we're working on, we've just been talking about, Behind the Paranormal 3, Uneasy Skies, along with Valerie. We look forward to contributions from a couple of other colleagues who have worked with us in one capacity or another. It will also contain the best of our interviews over the years with the greatest researchers in the UFO field, including the late Stanton Friedman and a number of others you've heard on the show. So look for that, again, later this year or early next. And Valerie has talked about her books. And then what do we got next?
So you can check out our current books along with those of our other co-hosts at our show website, BehindTheParanormal.com, where you can also find out more about the show, our many cases over the years, our public appearances, and how to book us, along with 900-plus free recorded shows from our 12-plus years on the air, including our 4.5-year run on CBS Radio, along with special shows and podcasts.
And our official 900th show is coming up in June, I should say, and we're planning some special surprises for that, and it'll be open lines, but we hope you'll look forward to that. There are far more than 900 hours available on the Behind the Paranormal website and on a number of the podcast platforms, iTunes, etc. So we're pretty much all over the place. And again, we have added Hilldale Cemetery to our charities page on BehindTheParanormal.com. What do we have for next week, Ben?
So next week, if my computer decides to respond, and it did not, next week, April 4th, is Easter. So we'll do a rerun of a popular show, our November 29th, 2020 interview with the great consciousness researcher Anthony Peake on the hidden universe. And on April 11th, we'll be back here on WOON, AM and FM radio with British poltergeist researcher John Fraser.
Yeah, I actually was talking with John, and I think it's going to be a great show. He's had done a lot of research on that subject. So we leave you today with a simple thought from the young, contemporary Indian philosopher Nitin Namdeo. You may not have heard of him, but maybe you will. Quote, "As long as you are living only for yourself, you are not living at all." Unquote. I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno. And thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time on Behind the Paranormal. Hey, we'll find out what happens at the top of the hour, I guess.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh my gosh.
Return to this radio frequency